Peak Performance, Chapter 7, Minimalist to a Maximalist. Michael Joyner, MD, a physician and researcher at the prestigious Mayo Clinic, is not only an expert on human performance, he's also a great performer himself. Joyner has published more than 350 articles on the topic and has won numerous awards for his work. Recently, he was named the disguised investigator of the Mayo Clinic and was awarded a grant through the celebrated Fulbright Scholar Program. In addition, in research, Joyner, anesthesiologist, sees patients regularly and is a mentor to countless up-and-comers, informally running what he calls my own version of a Montessori school. He writes about Sports Illustrated magazine and is frequently cited as an expert in other leading publications. If that isn't enough, Joyner, now 58, is still an avid athlete himself. And is in his heyday, he ran marathons is at blazing speeds. To top it all off, he's married with young kids. Joyner doesn't have a special genetic mutation that gives him endless energy, nor does he work 12 hours a day. He does, however, minimize distractions and eliminate activities that are extraneous to his work. This isn't to say Joyner is narrow-minded, walled off in his own field. If anything, he's quite of the opposite. I block off between 60 and 90 minutes every day to read outside of my domain, he told us. This helps me generate new ideas, but Joyner only does this extensive reading because he identified creativity as something integral to his research, and reading broadly is one of his conduits to creativity. He doesn't expect time or energy on anything that is not critical to his mission. In order to be maximalist, he says, you have to be a minimalist. Take a note. This does not mean you should aspire to be narrow or overly specialized. As we've seen in this book, many great performers have diverse interests that work together to fit their success. What this does mean, however, is that you should identify and strive to cut out all the superficial things in your life. You should be fully intentional with how you spend your most precious resource of all, time. A day in life of Joyner exemplifies this philosophy. He rises early between 4:30 and 5 a.m., well before his wife or young kids are awake. During this sacred hour, when his mind is refreshed and he is wholly undistracted, he completes what he feels is his most pressing and important work for that day. By the time his family awakes, he's ready for a break, so he shifts to spending quality time with them. An hour later, when he heads out for the day, he grabs his prepared gym bag filled with the same set of workout clothes, as it is every day. I don't want to devote my brain power to think about what to wear, he told us. He proceeds to ride his bike to a gym located near his office, which is only a few miles away. I was very intentional about selecting where to live, he said. I didn't want to waste my time commuting, nor burn willpower dealing with traffic. So I chose a place that I short bike ride away. Plus, on days when I can't get to the gym, my bike commute ensures I complete at least some physical activity. At work, Joyner doesn't engage in politics or office gossip, and while there are countless seminars and conferences that he could attend literally every day, he often chooses not to, as they will detract from his deep focused work. When Joyner returns home in the evening, he does his best to turn it off, rarely, if ever, engaging in extracurricular activities. In order to do great work, he told us, you need to say no to a lot of things, so that when it is time to say yes, you can do so with all your energy. Joyner will be first to tell you that saying no isn't easy. I could have lived in New York, Boston, or Washington, D.C., he explained, but I was attracted to Rochester, Minnesota, because it was a place where I could most easily focus on what is most important to me, my research and family. And since Joyner loves both his research and family, he's extremely happy. Joyner has designed not only his days, but really his entire life around eliminating distractions and decisions. that don't really matter. In doing so, he reserves energy and willpower for activities that are critically important to him. In other words, the secret joiner accomplishing so much to begin to being a maximalist in his field is that he is a minimalist in nearly everything else. If Joiner's philosophy and lifestyle sound familiar, that's because they are similar to that of another great performer we met in Chapter 3, Bob Kosher. MD, Dr. Bob compartmentalizes his day down to the minute, ensuring that each compartment has a distinct purpose. Like Joyner, Dr. Bob is very intentional about what he does and doesn't do, where he does and doesn't devote his energy. Emil Alzamora, an award-winning artist who you'll learn more about later on, built his studio what he calls his cave, in his backyard. He didn't do this, he told us, to minimize what stands between me and my art. It is this sort of intentionality that Alzamora, Dr. Bob Joyner, and so many other great performers share. Great performers choose where to focus their energy, and they protect it from everything else that could encroach upon it. This includes even seemingly simple things like deciding what style of shirt to wear. In order to be a maximalist, you have to be a minimalist. Decision fatigue. Next time you are at your computer, take a moment and complete a Google image search of Facebook founder and CEO of Mark Zuckerberg. By now you know would rather reach for your smartphone, but proceed if you must. Odds are you'll notice something similar about the pictures. Outside of very rare occasions when he's required to do otherwise, Zuckerberg's almost always done the same outfit: blue jeans, a gray t-shirt, and a hooded sweatshirt. It is not that Zuckerberg is trying to make a fashion statement, promoting a relaxed dress code to Silicon Valley, though he's certainly done that. Rather, his limited wardrobe is founded in an effort to increase his productivity and endurance his performance. At the end of 2014, and Zuckerberg's first ever public Q&A session, the question that garnered the most attention was, why do you wear the same t-shirt every day? I really want to clear my life to make it so that I had to make as few decisions as possible about anything else except how to best serve this community, replied Zuckerberg, clarifying that he had multiple same shirts. He went on to explain that when taken together, small decisions like choosing what to wear add up and can be quite tiring. I'm in still really lucky position where I get to wake up every day and help serve more than a billion people. And I feel like I'm not doing my job if I spend any of my energy on things that are silly or frivolous about my life, he said. Zuckerberg isn't the first genius to simplify his wardrobe. Many say that Albert Einstein, like Zuckerberg, had a closet filled with multiple same great suits. Steve Jobs almost exclusively wore a black mock turtleneck, blue jeans, and New Balance sneakers. President Barack Obama recently told Vanity Fair magazine, "You'll see I wear only the same gray or blue suits. I'm trying to pare down decisions. I don't want to make decisions about what I'm eating or wearing because I have too many other decisions to make." We could go on and on about the countless other great performers who have eliminated trivial decisions from their lives, but can removing such simple choices, blue shirt or a red shirt, Apple Jacks or Cheerios, truly affect performance? Recall the notion of our mind as a muscle. The theory pioneered by psychologist Roy Baumeister, PhD, that we introduced in Chapter 1, suggesting that we have a limited reservoir of mental energy which over the course of the day becomes depleted as we use it. Initially, research on this theory focused mainly on self-control, how resisting temptation early in the day makes us more likely to give in to the later on. But scientists soon found out that it isn't only resisting temptations that wears us out, but also making decisions. Judges are charged with making impartial decisions based on only evidence at hand. We expect judges to be skilled at minimizing noise and bias, evaluating each case in a vacuum. That's why it is especially surprising that research shows judges' rulings are heavily influenced by the number of decisions they previously made. For example, one study found judges granted prisoners parole 65% of the time at the beginning of the day, but nearly 0% of the time at the end of the day. These judges were succumbing to something called decision fatigue. As the decisions they were forced to make accumulated, the judges became mentally tired and thus had less energy to think critically about cases. Often instead, for the easier default choice, of no parole. Judges are not the only professionals who are respected for their ability to think critically but suffer from decision fatigue. A recent study found that physicians make significantly more prescribing errors as the day wears on. Jeffrey Linder, MD, lead author on the study, told the New York Times the radical notion is that doctors are people too, and we may be fatigued and make worse decisions toward the end of our clinic sessions. Without doubt, evaluating whether to grant parole or examining a sick patient requires a lot more thought than deciding what color shirt to wear. Nonetheless, even seemingly trivial decisions displayed as experiment shows that people who were forced to make choices among a range of consumer goods, colored t-shirts, type of scented candles, brand of shampoo, type of candy, and yes, even type of sock, performed worse than who were presented with only one option on the test of everything from physical stamina to persistence to problem solving. The subjects who were confronted with multiple choices also procrastinated more in other areas of their life later in the day. The researchers involved in these studies concluded that even when it comes to the simplest thing, making many decisions leaves a person in a depleted state, impairing his performance on future activities. One of the best ways to restore willpower is to take a break from the demanding task. This explains why we generally wake up with a full tank of willpower in the morning. For most of us, sleep is our longest break. We should realize we have limited energy and devote it only to things that really matter. Each time we make a deliberate decision, however inconsequential, it may seem our brain is processing different scenarios and evaluating all the options. As the decisions we make add up, so too does the amount of processing requirement by our brains. Just like any other muscle, our mental muscle gets tired. Our mental muscle is responsible not only for our ability to think critically, but also for our self-control. This means that even if your endeavor is physical in nature, running or weightlifting, your ability to push yourself to the max, one of the most challenging expressions of self-control there is, may depend on the decisions you make or didn't make earlier in the day. In other words, regardless of what it is that you do, eliminating non-essential decisions making can enhance your performance. This is why many coaches do what they can to ensure athletes have nothing to think about on a game day. In addition to fatiguing us over the course of the day, making decisions, even small ones, interrupts our acute train of thought. Our brains must drop whatever they were currently stewing on, or if our brains were in a creative mind-wandering state, they must switch out of it into an effortful thinking state, all just to evaluate what kind of socks we should wear. This doesn't mean that we should live on autopilot, opting to make hardly any decisions at all, but it doesn't mean we should realize that we have limited energy and devote it only to things that really matter. Of course, the more things that we think really matter, the less energy we have to devote to any one of them. It is only by becoming a minimalist that we can become a maximalist. The key to being a minimalist in making a routine out of just about everything that is not core to your mission. When decisions are automatic, you skip the conscious deliberation and associated brain activity. You move straight from encountering a situation, I need to get dressed, to performing an action, putting on the same shirt as I do every day, without expending energy in between. In a sense, you are cheating fatigue, saving your mental muscle for things that actually matter to you. The more decisions you make automatic, the more energy you have for the work you deem important. The most essential part about adopting the minimalist to be a maximalist lifestyle then is figuring out what really matters to you, what is actually worth spending energy on, and devoting minimal energy to everything else. Performance practices. 6 bullet points. First bullet point. Become a minimalist to be a maximalist. Bullet point number 2. Reflect on all decisions that you make throughout the day. Bullet point number 3. Identify ones that aren't important, that don't really matter to you. Bullet point number 4. Automate as many of the decisions that don't really matter as you can. Common examples include decisions about clothing, what to eat at meals, when to complete daily activities, Always exercise at the same time of the day, so you literally don't need to think about it. Whether to attend social gatherings, it is always a good idea, but during an important period of work, many great performers adopt a strict policy of saying no to social events. Bullet point number 5. In addition to eliminating as many decisions as possible, don't devote brain power to gossip, politics, or worrying about what others think of you. Unless, of course, your core mission is to be an elected official, then these things are in fact critically important. Bullet point number 5. In addition to reflecting upon daily decisions, think about the second and third order effects, commute time, financial pressures, etc., of large life decisions like where to live. Larks and owls. If the first step to designing an optimal day is figuring out what to do, and perhaps more important, what not to do, then the second step is figuring out when to do it. In this book, Daily Rituals, author Mason Curry detail a typical day for more than 50 of the world's greatest artists, writers, musicians, and thinkers to ever live. Not surprisingly, nearly all of them were minimalist, and they all adhere to fairly rigid routines. But the routines themselves, how these great performers designed their days, vary significantly. This was especially true for when they did their best work. Some, including Mozart, did their best work late in the night. Others, including Beethoven, were most productive at the crack of the dawn. The take-home message wasn't that the majority of these great performers did their best work at a certain time of the day, or that there is an optimal hour for productivity. Rather, each individual figured out when they were most alert and focused, and designed their day accordingly. These individuals were optimizing around their respective chronotypes, which is the scientific term for the unique ebb and flow of energy that everyone experiences over the course of 24 hours. Scientists refer to those who are most alert in the morning as larks, and those who are most alert in the evenings as owls. Numerous studies confirm that these categories are indeed very real, whether they be physically or cognitively demanding tasks. Most people tend to perform their best either in the earlier part of the day, larks, or in the later part of the day, owls. These individual differences are rooted in our body's unique biological rhythms, when various hormones associated with energy and focus are released, and when our body temperatures rise and fall. While some of us get pulses of energizing hormones earlier in the day, they come later on for others. Determining your chronotype. To help determine your chronotype, you can use an evidence-based questionnaire designated by researchers from the Sleep Research Center at Loughborough University in the UK. While information on how to access the full version is in the biography and source notes and portion of this book, answering the 3 questions here should give you a good idea of where you fall on the lark-owl spectrum. If you were entirely free to set up your evening with no commitments in the morning, what time would you go to sleep? That was number 1. Number 2. You have to do 2 hours of physical hard work. If you were entirely free to plan your day, when would you do this work? Number 3. You have to take 2-hour test, which you know will be mentally exhausting. If you were entirely free to choose, when would you choose to take the test? This questionnaire is a valuable tool, but the best way to understand your optimal schedule is to listen to your body. For the next 2 days, pay deep attention to when your energy levels feel the highest and when you fall into the foggy brain state in which attention lacks and your work starts to suffer. While a second-day reflective period can be insightful, months of coffee, sugar, and fighting fatigue can mess with your chronotype. Thus, the gold standard way to learn your chronotype is to go 7 days without setting an alarm clock or compensating for fatigue at any point of the day. Not only will you most accurately home in on your chronotype, but you'll also benefit from a reset period during which your body can return to its normal rhythm. You could undergo extensive longitudinal blood work to fatigue out when you're most likely to be at your best, or you could save the money and hustle, and just ask yourself some key questions. All of the great performers with whom we spoke while writing this book told us that there were specific times when they did their best work, and outside of the few Olympians, they didn't rely on blood tests to figure out when those times were. They simply engaged in a bit of introspection. They simply engage in a bit of introspection. Introspection. While performing based on work that demands deep focus and attention during our peak hours, morning for larks and evening for owls, the opposite holds true for generating creative ideas. As we learn in Chapter 4, creativity often requires stepping away from whatever it is we are working on and letting our minds wander. In doing so, we unleash the creative power of our subconscious, our brain default mode network. During our peak hours, when we are hyper alert and focused, our conscious mind is the dominant, but during our off-peak hours, as we become fatigued and struggle to maintain focus, our more creative mind has a better opportunity to shine. It should come as no surprise then that researchers have found larks perform best on tasks requiring creative insights in the evening, whereas owls tend to be most creative in the morning. Over time, when Steve and Brad discovered that we are larks and they designed our writing days accordingly, we used mornings to edit and refine writings, did focus work, and afternoons to work on new ideas and the next phases of writing creative work. This allowed for a nice cycle, refining in the morning the raw and creative work we completed the prior afternoon. Great performers don't fight their body's natural rhythm, rather they take advantage of it. They intentionally schedule their hardest and most demanding deep focus work, for athletes, their workouts, during periods in which they are the most alert. For some, this is early in the morning, and for others, this is late at night. When their biology shifts and they become less alert, great performers focus on tasks that, while still integral to their work, demand less attention. These tasks include things like responding to emails, scheduling unavoidable yet highly unproductive meetings, or doing basic chores around the house. Finally, when their attention really begins to wane, they don't force themselves to keep working. Rather, great performers let their minds wander and their bodies recover, and in doing so, they often exercise aha or eureka moments of insight. In other words, great performers are highly aware of their unique chronotypes and do everything they can to align their activities with their energy levels. You can strive to do the same. Performance practices. 3 bullet points. Determine your chronotype using the previous tools and suggestions. Bullet point number 2. Design your day accordingly. Be very intentional about when you schedule certain activities, matching the demands of the activity with your energy level. Protect the time during which you are most alert and use it for your most important work. Schedule less demanding tasks during periods in which you are less alert. Don't fight fatigue, rather use the time for recovery and to generate creative ideas that you can act on during your next cycle of high energy and focus. Bullet point number 3. Work in alignment with your chronotype. If not only maximizes performance, but it also helps to ensure an appropriate balance between stress and rest. Choose your friends wisely. Just like diseases easily spread through tight-knit groups, so does motivation. The makeup of your social circle has profound implications for your own behavior. What is honored in a country will be cultivated there. The same holds true for a team or social group. If we surround ourselves with those who support, motivate, and challenge us, we can reach greater heights than we could have alone. Choose your friends wisely. In 2010, the United States Air Force Academy set out to understand why some cadets increase their fitness during their time at the academy, while others do not. In a National Bureau of Economic Research study that tracked a cohort of cadets over 4 years, researchers found that while there was variability in fitness gains, losses across all the cadets, there was hardly any variability within squadrons. Squadrons are groups of about 30 cadets, to which an individual is randomly assigned prior to his freshman year. Cadets spend the vast majority of their time interacting with peers in their squadron. In a sense, the squadrons become second family. Cadets in the same squadron eat, sleep, study, and work out together. Even though all the squadrons train and recover in exactly the same manner, some squadrons show vast increases in fitness over 4 years, whereas others did not. It turns out the determining factor as to whether the 30 cadets within a squadron improved was the motivation of the least fit person in the group. If the least fit person was motivated to improve, then his enthusiasm spread and everyone improved. If, on the other hand, the least fit person was apathetic, or worse, negative, he dragged everyone down. Just like disease easily spreads through tight-knit groups, so does motivation, and it is quite contagious. Even the simple act of observing others can affect your own motivation. Researchers at the University of Rochester had subjects watch a video of someone describing themselves as being either intrinsically motivated, motivation comes from within, or extrinsically motivated, motivation comes from external recognition and rewards, to play a game. Those who were assigned to watch the video of people describing themselves as being intrinsically motivated reported feeling more intrinsically motivated themselves. Furthermore, when researchers left the subjects alone, those who had watched the intrinsic video started playing of their own volition. The same game showed in the video, while those who watched the extrinsic video did not. Perhaps most fascinating is that these effects were strong irrespective of whether some identify as being intrinsically or extrinsically motivated prior to the experiment. It is as if your own attitude pales in comparison to the attitudes of those around you. Motivation isn't the only emotion that is contagious. Research shows that when we see someone else express happiness or sadness by smiling or frowning, the neural networks associated with these emotions becomes active in our brains. The same goes for pain. The mere sight of someone in pain activates our own neurological pain response. This explains why we cry during sad movies, feel uplifted among happy friends, and cringe when we bear witness to someone in pain. In the words of Stanford University psychologist Emma Spalla, PhD, we are wired for empathy. Not only are we wired for empathy, but there is strong evidence that we have socially contagious emotions that prompt very concrete actions and behaviors. Studies show that if one of your friends becomes obese, you are 57% more likely to become obese yourself. If one of your friends quits smoking cigarettes, the chances you'll smoke decrease by 36%. These social influences remain surprisingly strong even in the case of second and third degree connections. If a friend of a friend becomes obese, your odds of gaining weight increases by 20%. Even if an acquaintance you barely know starts smoking, it affects the chances you'll light up by 11%. In other words, the makeup of your social circle has profound implications for your own behavior. While what you do and when you do it is important, so it is who you do it with. While what you do and when you do it is important, so it is who you do it with. At the peak of the Greek Empire, Plato noted, what is honored in a country will be cultivated there. The same holds true for a team or social group. When sports teams go on winning streaks, there is almost always talk of a magical chemistry that flows through the locker room. Often it is not the team that has the largest collection of pure talent that wins championships, but the team that is best able to come together. It is no different of the athletic field. In the words of business and management guru Peter Drucker, culture eats tragedy for breakfast. Culture eats tragedy for breakfast. Performance practices. 4 bullet points. Bullet point number 1. Recognize the enormous power of the people with whom you surround yourself. Bullet point number 2. Positive energy, motivation, and drive are all contagious. Do what you can to cultivate your own village of support, to surround yourself with a culture of performance. Bullet point number 3. Remember that by being positive and showing motivation, you are not only helping yourself, but you are also helping everyone else in your life. Bullet point number 4. Unfortunately, negativity and pessimism are also contagious. Don't put up with too much of either. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. While we don't all work on teams, the significance of who we surround ourselves with is universally important. Who we interact with day in and day out, who we turn to when the going gets tough, and who we share our working spaces with. All of these things have profound impact on how we feel and perform. We are constantly working against the mindset of those who surround us. It is only a matter of time before we too will get dragged down, just like some of the Air Force cadets did. Apathy and negativity are particularly dangerous in the face of challenge. An apathetic person or negative peer exploits and exemplifies pre-existing doubts one might have. If, on the other hand, we surround ourselves with those who support, motivate, and challenge us, we can reach greater heights than we could have alone. In other words, of the Olympic cyclist Megan Gaunier, I cannot stress enough the importance of building a village, or of the right personal and professional supporters. It is everything. Showing up. The best performers are not consistently great, but they are great at being consistent. The real secret of world-class performers isn't the daily routines that they develop, but that they stick to them, that they show up, even when they don't feel like it. Showing up. The best performers design their days strategically. They are minimalist in order to be maximalist. They ensure their work is in harmony with their chronotype, and they surround themselves with supportive, like-minded people. But designing the perfect day means nothing if you don't show up for it. In the words of the writer James Clear, the single greatest skill in any endeavor is doing the work. Not doing the work that is easy for you, not doing the work that makes you look good, not doing the work when you feel inspired, just doing the work. The best performers are not consistently great, but they are great at being consistent. They show up every day and they do the work. A large body of social science suggests that attitudes often follow behaviors. Great performers understand this, and if nothing more, they make sure to at least get started on all their working days. When drafting a novel, award-winning author Haruki Murakami designs his day with precision and adheres to a strict routine, but he'll be the first to tell you that the routine itself is really just there to support what matters most, showing up. He'll also be the first to tell you that showing up isn't easy. When I'm in writing mode for a novel, I get up at 4 a.m. and work for 5 to 6 hours in the afternoon. I run 4 kilometers or swim 1,500 meters or do both. Then I read a bit and listen to some music. I go to bed at 9 p.m. I keep this routine every day without variation. The repetition itself becomes the important thing. It is a form of mannerism. I mesmerize myself to reach the deeper state of mind, but to hold such repetition for so long, 6 months to a year, requires a good amount of mental and physical strength. In that sense, writing a novel is like survival training. Physical strength is necessary as artistic sensitivity. If you think about it, everything we've discussed in this chapter works in service of showing up and being at your best. When you do, perhaps the real secret of world-class performers is not the daily routines that they develop, but that they stick to them, that they show up even when they don't feel like it. Call it drive, call it passion, or call it a gift, a grit. Whatever you call it, it must come from deep within. But in an interesting twist, this strength that becomes from deep within is often rooted in something without. When the going gets tough, great performers don't show up for themselves. They show up for something greater than themselves. As a matter of fact, they transcend the very notion of the self altogether. That's where we'll turn next.